Watching news at Prime. Good evening to you and a warm welcome if you're just joining. Well, we begin with this breaking news. Higher Education Minister Dr. Buti Manamela has been fired. The presidency has confirmed Buti Manamela as her replacement. She thanked the president in a statement released by Ngabane. Newzroom Afrika's senior reporter Qaanitah Hunter joining us now for a little bit more on this. Interesting because the minister's letter landed first, at least in our social media platforms, and then the presidency statement came thereafter. Has she been fired or did she resign of her own volition?
Well, we know the president has removed her and replaced her with Buti Manamela, but by issuing that statement first, it appears that she would have sort of jumped before she was pushed. But absolutely big development, Xoli. We know that Buti Manamela would have been in hot water tomorrow when she appeared for, before the Portfolio Committee on Higher Education, and they were, drew a line in the sand about her role in the appointment of CETA board chairpersons and whether or not she lied to Parliament. This was something that the president has been sitting on for more than 6 weeks now. The president had asked the minister for a report on what happened in relation to the appointment of those controversial board chairpersons, which that process has now been abandoned. But the question was who was on the panel, and that it has since come out to Parliament that the minister may have misled Parliament by saying that a list of people, including Advocate Terry Matau, was on that list, and they say they had nothing to do with the appointment of those board chairpersons. Now, last week, that defiance and disdain for Parliament, was re-emphasized on Friday, exacerbating calls for her removal from across the board, whether it was the Democratic Alliance, whether it was SASCO. And now the president has finally acted, because one would imagine what would have been the explanation that she finally gave Parliament when she was set to appear tomorrow. And so now the president saying that Buti Manamela, who was in Parliament on Friday, he was a sitting duck. We know deputy ministers have no powers of their own and can only deputize the minister
unless delegated.
Unless delegated. And the deputy, and he has been deputy minister of higher education for a very, very long time. In fact, when Minister Ngabane was appointed, many questioned as to why was he become a professional deputy minister in many ways and not been given that chance. Very interestingly, Xoli, the new deputy minister of higher education is one Nomusa Dube.
Nomusa Dube, and she was mentioned as part of those CETA board chairpersons. We'll come back to that in a moment, Qaanitah. The parliamentary processes, does that mean that all of that now falls away? She no longer gets to be held accountable for her effectively lying to Parliament?
That will be interesting whether the Portfolio Committee and the Democratic Alliance push ahead with referring her to the Ethics Committee. If she remains a member of Parliament, does that stand? And remember, there's this trick around it being a criminal offence. You remember in the so-called Gupta ministers case where some former ministers had, left their positions, there was an effort to hold them accountable post-fact, after they had resigned. So I don't know to which Parliament would try to pursue this particular matter. But you know that Minister Ngabane, or former Minister Ngabane now, remained defiant till the end last week, saying publicly that she had no idea that there were conversations to remove her. She says she had gone to cabinet meetings, she'd go to the ANC, to Lutuli House, and she had heard nothing. She only sees it on social media. Well, now she probably had a conversation with the president.
Is it suddenly making sense to you, the dots connecting, so to speak? The president calls her, and we know this for a fact now because the presidency did confirm, she was meant to go to China with the deputy president, but she was called at the last minute to say, please don't go, and instead someone else would be going in her place. Is that suddenly making sense right now, given that particular instruction to say, stay at home? If that's the case, the president, was he relying on her to effectively throw in the towel? As we know him, he doesn't really want to get his hands dirty, so he would have preferred perhaps that she does this some time ago, and I guess she had to leave it till this very last minute before she appeared in Parliament tomorrow. Am I making sense?
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that the writing was on the wall that Minister Nkabane would face the chop, and I think, or at least be held accountable by the president for that debacle of lying to Parliament. But what was interesting for me was what happened on Friday, and you would have thought that she would have been removed before her being summoned to Parliament on Friday, and then her defying and going to the Eastern Cape, and that public spectacle that played out on Friday just further sort of pushed the president in a corner that he could not leave this matter any longer. Another consideration is that this was a big demand of the Democratic Alliance that he fires Nkabane, and we know that the GNU marriage, as we know, it is on the rocks, and whether or not this reshuffle, if you like, would appease the Democratic Alliance, given their anger at the axing of former Deputy Minister Andrew Whitfield. So politically, this comes with a lot of baggage, and I think that the president did the easiest thing, which was to appoint the natural successor in the form of Buti Manamela.
Yeah.
But quite interesting is the new deputy minister.
That's exactly who we're going to talk about now. You use the word appeasement. Do you think that this is his way of appeasing KwaZulu-Natal? Because it does remain a big block within the ANC when it comes to numbers going to conference. Has he done enough to appease that province by bringing in someone who comes from that province but as deputy minister?
Nomusa Dube has been recently been a supporter of President Cyril Ramaphosa, at least at the last conference, and there has been efforts to sort of save her politically, given the shenanigans that have unfolded in the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal. And this position of higher education had been one that has been sort of lobbied for by the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal. That's how Nobuhle Nkabane got that position. As this debutante minister, she was pushed by comrades from KwaZulu-Natal. That's where she comes from. And so there will definitely be a sort of an appeasement politically of that bloc of the ANC by giving her this particular position. It's just quite noteworthy that she's in the news today because her house had been burnt down over the weekend. So that's quite unfortunate. But it will be interesting to see how this pans out, and whether or not Nobuhle Nkabane, in appointing those CETA board chairperson, had done so with any ANC instruction. And I think that's what Parliament was seeking to get to, is to, if you did not have a selection panel, where did you get these names to appoint those people, which included Gwede Mantashe's son, Nomusa Dube, etc. And so that particular controversy around the CETA boards, we obviously wouldn't know now how that came about. But more importantly now, the president saying, well, let's move forward. It will be interesting to say whether she stays as a member of Parliament or not.
I'm suddenly, as we talk, things are sort of falling into place, if you like. But there's a bigger question around the new Minister of Higher Education. He comes from the ranks of the SACP. The SACP has taken a resolution that it is going to contest elections independent of the ANC, even though there remains the talk that the alliance is sticking together. There has been something of a discussion, at least in the media space, speculating, of course, that this discussion is also possibly taking place inside the ANC and its alliance partners. Questions around whether the ministers of the SACP, of course, they'll say there's no such thing, we belong to the ANC, but they come from the SACP. Is this a wise decision by the president, having painted that picture for you? SACP contesting elections, independent of the ANC, and so here's a president who wants to appease KZN, but he appoints the successor not as a full cabinet minister, but rather as a deputy minister. Am I making sense?
So obviously the NEC meeting that was supposed to sit this weekend, that would have had a number of big considerations. The one was the future of the Democratic Alliance in the GNU, and the second big one was the SACP. And so politically, this sort of fills that, or at least neutralizes the heat around the SACP and its decision to contest elections, which again has been a decision that has been lingering in the air since 2014. And I remember writing a front page or a new article on this particular matter for those dinosaurs like me and you, Xoli. But the point is that definitely would appease the SACP, which Buti Manamela has his support base. But more than that, I think appeases your young constituency in the ANC and in the alliance movement, calling for a young progressive minister, and then obviously the experience that he had accumulated over that time. So it seems, and many within the ANC, in this short while before coming on air, have said natural that it would have been Buti Manamela taking that position, given the role that he has played for many, many, many years. I think I stand to be corrected, but it could be close to a decade or so that he was the Deputy Minister of Higher Education.